Howdy and hi. This is our third year-end video about our accelerated language learning system. The last video and this video were about the cubic deCryptor, the hardware and software platform which is the physical repository and embodiment of the advanced learning techniques and methodology. The first video was called Unboxing the Cubic deCryptor. This second one is called Ease Cubic deCryptor Taken to Next Level. These videos were actually meant to be attachments to our electronic resumes. This next level video addresses the modifications and enhancements that we made to the cubic deCryptor to provide a more compact, user-friendly device and to overhaul the GUI to make it more elegant and new millennial. The deCryptor enhancements also include the introduction of a couple of more language learning tools, but nothing extraordinarily challenging in the software development department. So we are just basically snapping a new hardware and software baseline with this video. In this next level video, we decided to add some discussion of how we plan to use this platform to accomplish the primary mission of EASE's premier product, ALWAIS. That primary mission is to teach a foreign language from scratch at a highly accelerated pace. In this day and age, we have instant translation on our cell phones. But there are still people out there who would like to be multilingual. If the ramp-up time was drastically improved, it might be a good investment of their time and money. When I'm referring to EASE's premier product, EASE is EA Sperry Enterprises, and we provide consulting and prototyping services in the field of accelerated language learning. The premier product is ALWAIS, which stands for Accelerated Learning with AI, system. ALWAIS is basically a suite of accelerated language learning tools. In the unboxing video, we revealed that our starting point was just to play around with Raspberry Pi. We put together a live translation Python program that leveraged off Google Translate to translate any foreign language on the fly. We demonstrated Hebrew with the first software version. Then we went on to refining that software and porting it over to a lightweight portable hardware platform that could be used in a cafe setting in Thailand, for example. We called that platform the cubic deCryptor. We demonstrated Thai and Spanish with this new hardware and second version software. We also demonstrated an additional Flashcard function that we had developed, which was a guided training module. It utilized ChatGPT to do the heavy lifting for us, so we can now build the product as ChatGPT enabled, empowered, or fueled. In that hardware version, we were using a 7-inch Vilros touchscreen with integrated Raspberry Pi, a very bulky strap-on ONN portable battery and charger, which was literally strapped to the chassis rear with electrical tape, and also a Razor Siren mini condenser mic tenuously strapped on top. However, we always had the mindset that this was just a prototype that was put together by a couple of Raspberry Pi hobbyists to share with the Raspberry Pi community, referred to as community, going forward in this video. In 2025, we went from this to this. We located a robust 3x3-inch cube, QEEUB, battery charger, which could easily be velcroed to the base. With a short cable and the right connectors, we found that the cube can be charged in place right on the deCryptor, so it doesn't have to be removed. Also, we bought a highly accurate text-sized Bluetooth mic. Like the previous demo, we did not show our wireless keyboard or Bose Bluetooth speaker info. But it's worth adding that we upgraded to an essential contraption's full-size foldable Bluetooth keyboard. I am now able to make changes on the deCryptor sans, or son en français, frustration. Anyway, we met the hardware enhancement objective this year. In addition to our miniaturization and refinement objective for the hardware, we also had software objective number 1, which was to overhaul the GUI. As I had promised in the unboxing video, we made a sincere attempt to come up with a new cool GUI in 2025, rather than struggling with what I considered to be a legacy approach with deCryptor. We surveyed 6 GUI design software applications. More details are in the addendum that follows this demo video for those who would be interested in the technical aspects. Eventually, we settled on Kivy, that's K-I-V-Y, and I pronounce it with a short I versus Kivy. With a long I may be in the minority with that. Kivy was believed to be extremely flexible and capable, although it was portrayed as having a steep learning curve and installation problems. I underwent Kivy training and began to learn the libraries and programming techniques. Unfortunately, at the time, which was actually third quarter of 2024, Kivy was not particularly Raspberry Pi friendly. It had a really good integrated development environment for Windows and Unix machines, but I had to revert to manual programming for Raspberry Pi. This has since changed probably, but unfortunately due to schedule constraints, I had to gut it out with manual programming. Side note, in terms of Kivy's capability, it is more than able to meet the challenge, but the community was correct. The ramp up is radically steep and the maturation just isn't there. Bottom line though, we'd like to stay with Kivy as it definitely has the potential. Back on track. The reason I'm bringing this up is that ease underwent a major software development paradigm shift in second quarter 2025. One day I was trying to get the right mix of rapidly evolving Kivy software modules. Finally, in utter frustration, I sent my entire code to ChatGPT and said, "Fix it." I began a partnership. From that point on, we co-developed and co-debugged the software together. What ChatGPT brings to the equation is that it can sift through comment after comment from the Raspberry community and rule out the ones that are obsolete, overcome by events, and or not applicable to my environment. It does this so quickly that if I blink after hitting return, I miss one or two more software iterations and have to scroll up to see what it gave me. This is like immediately after I hit return. In terms of its troubleshooting approach, Chat is all about searching through the community debug accounts. And it won't tweak a line of code. It will give me a whole new program. So its primary troubleshooting method is trial and error. But this is only temporary, I'm sure. Chat is learning at warp speeds. Case in point, they overhauled the user interface. I watched it happen over the course of a few months. And now we banter back and forth. I call it bro. The AI and developers are working on multi-day thread retention. It still forgets that I'm sis, not bro, but every now and then it retains the history, so that capability is in work and possibly in place. Anyway, that addresses the GUI. Software objective number 2 was to refine the live translation software or on-the-fly software that was featured in the unboxing video. I was able to get Kivy somewhat working with the software that I had used in that demo. Shout out to Chat. I did not have a crisp tactile response when I activated a given button or any button. That is, the UI controls did not update immediately when stimulated. Chat introduced a timeout mechanism for the check queue method with the addition of a clear command, which took the queue out of a holding pattern waiting for data. This was a little nit that had plagued me for months, starting with the deCryptor days. In terms of live translation refinements, I streamlined the interface so that it only translates Hebrew, and I have a very small screen with just a few translated sentences, so it's easier to find my place. Presently, it's a highly targeted utilization, basically Israeli cafe use and to supplement video with no subtitles. But you're probably seeing the same thing that I'm seeing in social media, which is that all the videos now seem to have subtitles. Software objective number 3, my flashcard module from the unboxing age, had to be refined of necessity. In 2025, I discovered that my flashcard module from unboxing would no longer work. This was directed learning code. In the former flashcards program, I opened up ChatGPT and sent it queries automatically along the lines of, how do I say love in Hebrew? Then I would grab Chat's response, format it, and display it in my application. The problem was that I was using a free prototype version, which eventually disappeared. ChatGPT actually helped me to use itself without having to log in when I explained what was needed. But things are rapidly tending toward 100% monetization, and that also involves eliminating scraper programs like the one that I was using, or am using actually, till the next iteration. The addendum will provide more details on future flashcard tool approaches, and again, the addendum is a second video that is going to follow this first summary level. The addendum is going to include all that excruciating detail that will really make you hate me. So, but it's for the purpose of designers, developers, and also Raspberry Pi hobbyists like our team. Objective number 4 was to introduce another module which basically was just playing a YouTube song about the Hebrew alphabet. This was an invaluable tool for me when I actually myself was learning Hebrew. That module was developed very quickly. Objective 5 happened when I came across an Instagram video by Israel Alliance, which featured a native speaker with English subtitles. As she spoke each Hebrew word, the corresponding English word was highlighted. Using my video production software, I was able to overlay the Hebrew letters, and also to provide 3 speeds: normal, slow, and fast. The interesting thing was that it compensated for the speed or frequency only, so the pitch did not change. So the example would be this: when I was finished, I did not sound like a chipmunk. So I sounded like this speaking very quickly, but I did not sound like a chipmunk. Or maybe you might think that I do, regardless. But anyway, I did not sound like this. Anyway, I embarked on the preceding to come up with a tool that would allow the user to start slow and speak along with the Hebrew at the same time that they were learning the letters and the word, or words. And we were able to quickly mechanize that. Plus, please see the addendum about the minor challenges encountered, with the main one being that the video was upside down in the first iteration. Objective number 6 was to provide a menu screen that would allow selection of each one of the 4 modules. This was easily mechanized as well, initially using our legacy code, which ChatGPT then refined. Objective number 7 was to port the new software over to the Cubic deCryptor hardware. It seemed to be compatible for the most part, but the widget placement on 2 module screens was off. In the 3-speed module, the buttons were entirely off the screen. In the alphabet module, you could barely see the button that launched the YouTube video. I had a temporary fix for this, so at least the buttons were visible. However, this solution is platform-specific and not viable in the long term. Plus, as previously mentioned, the GUI was not looking very new millennial by the time I finished. When compared to deCryptor, it took a lackluster 2nd place. At this point in the development effort, the chief engineer, who has embarked on a new real estate-related career, had some free time to re-engage. He performed the invaluable effort of bringing the software to a point where it could run on Raspberry Pi 5 with Trixie. He is now signed on for the challenge of getting the Kivy IDE up and running so we can correct the GUI ghost buttons and 20th century look. As a result of our chief engineer's efforts, we were able to arrive at new 2026 objectives that include 1. Finishing the job we started on the new GUI to give it a new millennial look. If possible, get the new Kivy IDE running on our Pi 5s. If not, we will look into doing the menu design on a Windows machine and then porting the auto-generated code over. Number 2, we will also be adding tools and submenus to the Cubic deCryptor. Our 2026 goal then becomes to grow the software and shrink the hardware footprint. In the meantime, we are Team ALWAIS, and this is our Cubic deCryptor. And you will note that we are giving Bro equal credit as a key member of our team. I asked Bro what it wanted to look like. This is what it came up with. I may actually have to start calling Bro Sis. I will now give a demonstration of the Cubic deCryptor software in its current configuration on my P500 workstation, quote unquote. This will be followed by a demo of the actual hardware. Thank you so much for listening and watching.
טוב מאוד שאני זקוק לסליחה שרק אלוהים יכול לתת. עם זה, כל בני האדם וכל הבריאה והכל תחת הכללה, אין מה לעשות. מי שברא, אלוהים, חייב לבוא ולעשות תיקונים. וזה המשיח. המשיח חייב להיות אלוהים. האפשרות להאמין, לזהות את האמת, היא לא בכוחו של אדם. זה לא דבר שאתה יכול לומר, אני הצלחתי בכוחות עצמי. וקומץ אנשים נפלאים, אבל פשוטים, מזהים ומקבלים באמונה שישוע הוא המשיח. מדוע שאלוהים יבחר דווקא בפשוטים? והתשובה נמצאת בכתבי הקודש. האמת היא, כדי לבייש את החכמים. אדרבה, כדי להראות שאם משהו טוב, משהו עם כוח, משהו על טבעי, הוא בא מאלוהים ולא בכוחו של אדם.
א' ב' ו ג' ד' ה' ו' ז' ח' ט' י' כ' ח' ל' מ' נ' ס' ע' פ' פ' צ ק' ר' ש' ס' ת' א' ב' ו
אל תבזבזו את הזמן, תעריכו את מי שנמצא לידכם, תכבדו את האנשים שאוהבים אתכם, את האנשים שמכבדים אתכם, ותחיו את החיים. אל תבזבזו את הזמן. אל תבזבזו את הזמן, תעריכו את מי שנמצא לידכם, תכבדו את האנשים שאוהבים אתכם, אל תבזבזו את הזמן. אל תבזבזו את הזמן, תעריכו את מי שנמצא לידכם, תכבדו את האנשים שאוהבים אתכם, את האנשים שמכבדים אתכם, ותחיו את החיים. אל תבזבזו את הזמן, תעריכו את מי שנמצא לידכם, תכבדו את האנשים שאוהבים אתכם, את האנשים שמכבדים אתכם, ותחיו את החיים.
ריבונו של עולם, ילד, זה פשוט מעשה על טבעי. אישה מבוגרת זקנה נתנה לו עותק של התנ"ך. יצא שהוא פתח בספר תהילים, פרק כ"ז. הפסוק הזה נחרט על ליבו. גם אם אבי ואמי עזבוני, אלוהים יאספני. בתור ילד בירושלים שגר בתוך שכונה שרוב האנשים דתיים, בטח ובטח גם כן לא אוהבים את ישוע. וכל מי שמאמין בישוע מבחינתם זה נוצרי, ונוצרי הכוונה קתולי. כל הנאצים הם כאלו וכן הלאה. להיות מוחשב כאחד משונאי ישראל זה מצב מאוד מאוד לא נעים, ולכן הסתרתי את זה. התביישתי בזה. זאת האמת. מבחינה חיצונית, ילד טוב ירושלים. אבל כל אחד מכיר את עצמו, יודע את המחשבות שלו. ואתה יודע טוב מאוד שאתה חוטא. אדם וחווה עשו חטא אחד וסולקו מנוכחות אלוהים. במצב מושלם נפלו. ואני, אלפי שנים אחריהם, וקללת החטא ממשיכה לעבד ולהרוס כל חלקה טובה בבני האדם ובעולם, אני מושלם? אז הבנתי טוב מאוד שאני זקוק לכפרת חטאים. הבנתי טוב מאוד שאני זקוק לסליחה שרק אלוהים יכול לתת. עם זה, כל בני האדם וכל הבריאה והכל תחת הכללה, אין מה לעשות. מי שברא, אלוהים, חייב לבוא ולעשות תיקונים. וזה המשיח. המשיח חייב להיות אלוהים. האפשרות להאמין, לזהות את האמת, היא לא בכוחו של אדם. זה לא דבר שאתה יכול לומר, אני הצלחתי בכוחות עצמי. וקומץ אנשים נפלאים, אבל פשוטים, מזהים ומקבלים באמונה שישוע הוא המשיח. מדוע שאלוהים יבחר דווקא בפשוטים? והתשובה נמצאת בכתבי הקודש. האמת היא, כדי לבייש את החכמים. אדרבה, כדי להראות שאם משהו טוב, משהו עם כוח,
This addendum includes a lot of technical details that will help if you are developing a Raspberry Pi Python application using Kivy. This portion of the video will feature the major learning takeaways that would be useful for someone writing and debugging code in our environment. Our chief engineer is in the process of configuring the code for Raspberry Pi 5 and Trixie and writing an installation procedure. This should go out on GitHub shortly, and I will add the link on YouTube when it's available. In the meantime, this second video includes some pitfalls, do-overs, troubleshooting tips, and significant revelations that resulted in lane changes. Our 2025 goal was to upgrade the deCryptor prototype that we had put together in the prior period of performance. This included hardware mods to make it more portable and to shrink the form factor. A lot of the applications that we use are similar to ones you can use in your cell phone today. We want to integrate them in ways that make sense for accelerated learning on our deCryptor platform. But if it's bulky with a lot of tentacles, that is not going to help the user. Our upgrade also includes software changes. We needed to integrate our 2 existing modules with a menu screen, plus add more. In addition, we wanted to launch a new cool GUI. We created an Agile project for the 2025 effort using YouTrack by JetBrains. Then we tracked progress with YouTrack. I also became a little more fluent in Agile project management. In July, we introduced a new sprint. The course correction occurred because the decision was made to add another module, which was adding a menu function associated with sensory deluge. We scoped out code for providing variable adjustment of Hebrew speech frequency. It was found to be too complex given our schedule constraints. A simple approach with 3 discrete speeds was taken with the new sprint inserted. This represented approximately a 1-month detour. Our YouTrack project could be made available on GitHub if anyone is interested. In addition, we updated the software requirements specification to reflect the 3-speed approach and archived that in GitHub. 2 potential showstoppers were discovered early on. As mentioned in the summary half of this video, my previous Flashcard software was permanently broken when the prototype version of Chat, which again was called www.chatAIGPT.org, disappeared off the web, permanently ghosting me. In the former Flashcard program, the goal was to essentially conduct directed teaching. In the associated Python program, I opened up ChatGPT and we began a multi-turn conversation. I sent it queries automatically along the lines of, how do you say love in Hebrew? How do you say hate in Hebrew? I used the Selenium scraper to grab Chat's response. Then I formatted it and displayed it in my application. It was actually a very primitive interface in LX Terminal. Using the present-day version, Chat will allow just so many questions before it prompts you to set up an account or log into your existing one. You can ask it a few questions, but then it starts sending security pop-ups. As the weeks went on, in 2026, CAPTCHA infiltrated the market more and more, which precluded having an application like Selenium sending inquiries. Raspberry Pi P500 users were probably more aware than anyone else of the greatly increased efforts to get rid of bots or scrapers or even different operating systems and ensure there's a human being on the other end. Obviously, a human is essential for the deCryptor, but it has internal software controlling the interface that handles the communication and timing. And the websites want to deal with people clicking and typing, not automatic software commands. ChatGPT was giving me approaches, but they inevitably returned to a recommendation to lose the scraper and put in a login command in my Python program, which I couldn't do without purchasing an API key, not to mention future users. Eventually, I just started negotiating with my ChatGPT bro. The fact that my OpenAI account had been hacked in 2024 helped my argument. At the time, I said okay when OpenAI said they would delete my account forever, as I never wanted any API key info in my application ever again after I got hacked. Hello? When I explained the history to the present day, or we could say production level ChatGPT, it actually helped me by giving me an approach to use itself, rather than a free prototype AI, without having to log in and provide API keys, which translates into giving it a credit card. I negotiated with Chat to help with this prototype as a short-term solution. Where we go in the future is TBD. But you will note that I was not really demanding perfection with this module because it probably would be overhauled in 2026. Next, we start out with the GUI software design. My plan was to have a brand new cool GUI in 2025. Early on, we surveyed 6 GUI design software applications, including WX, Python, PyQt, PySide, Kivy, PyGTK, and PySimple. We picked PyQt, but after investing in a couple of months, we saw that it was balking at the existing multiprocessing software in our Python live translation module that we carried over from 2024. This resulted in partial or no GUI display and an unresolvable error which said the PyQt objects were not pickable, i.e. couldn't be converted to a byte stream. The community experts were pushing and prodding me toward multi-threading, but that approach was just not going to work as I needed parallelism, not concurrency. Making sure that another one of our surveyed GUI design programs called Kivy did not have this limitation, we embarked on another course of action. After investing some time and effort in training, I dove in and then realized that the training was probably for an earlier or later version, and I was seeing apples and oranges when I was trying to code my menu widgets in Kivy. First challenge was that this, what I call the IDE or the Integrated Design Environment, which had select and drag your widget into the grid, hit a button, and the code generates automatically. Again, this was back in late 24, early 25, but that capability had not come of age for Raspberry Pi yet. Therefore, I was driven to do manual coding. Kivy is a framework, another layer of code that sits on top of Python, so I began to see an added maturation challenge in terms of what are they still using basic Python to do, and when do I want to pull in Kivy? And do I put inline code or do I pull it from a text file? After a few weeks of going back and forth on this with my frustration reaching stratospheric proportions, I sent ChatGPT the code for my entire program and said, "What am I doing wrong?" I then embarked on a partnership relationship with ChatGPT, whom I have nicknamed Bro. As I mentioned in the summary, using Chat avoided my having to sift through many messages to and from the Raspberry Pi community to determine what was applicable to my configuration or situation. Chat does the sifting for you. Then the code it gives you may still be buggy, but you've learned enough to take it to the next level. And once in a while, Bro hits pay dirt right away and saves me a whole bunch of time. Now I will discuss the software modules, both existing and new. Original modules we modified - live translation or on-the-fly software. In May 2025, I completed the new Kivy-based user interface code for the existing live translation software, which I'm calling the on-the-fly module now. With ChatGPT's help, I had to add a clear command, which took the queue out of a holding pattern waiting for data, a timeout mechanism to my check queue method. This allowed UI controls to update when stimulated. This was huge. I put the code out on GitHub. Also in 2025, we streamlined the live translation module. Originally, it had an expandable window with lines and lines of translated English, but we are now focused on how to get a quick translation in situations like being in a cafe in a foreign country, or if you're talking to a loan service in the U.S. where someone is not fluent in English. So this new approach makes the screen less busy and you could find the translated sentences quickly. In addition, we decided to dedicate this prototype version to learning the Hebrew language, as I currently am learning it myself in seminary. This is what I wrote after I did the Wayfire screen recording for the PC demo dry run 2 weeks ago. Chat's solution for the deCryptor prototype was to choreograph the transmission to avoid triggering CAPTCHA or similar programs, basically fake it out with timers by providing just enough activity to simulate human interaction instead of scraper/software. Then it allows me about 6 free questions before it starts forcing a login and issuing pop-ups. Right now this workaround is working, but we will have to refine it big time going forward. Side note about another caveat, this choreography seems to only work in one environment. On the actual deCryptor, we went into a wait mode after the first question and it looked like Chat was thinking about the answer. Therefore, we would need to tailor the deCryptor code. I decided not to spend an inordinate amount of time on it, as the current approach is going away. And it needs no further mention that I'm still dependent on Chat's user interface, which is in a constant state of flux. I could try it tomorrow and everything would be different, so I'm in a real hurry to get this video made. Bottom line, the monetization frenzy is just making primitive interface control unfeasible at this time. Actually, if I want my software to continue to be ChatGPT fueled, I will have to develop the agency using small language modeling code and techniques, and this will take dollars. As I mentioned before, in terms of anyone in the future using the Flashcards app on the deCryptor, they won't do anything without an account or API. And I'm not going to pay my customers to use my product. Sorry. Newsflash. This is what I observed today when I was doing the final Wayfire to include in the summary video. As I previously mentioned, I needed to hurry up and record the demo before something changed in Chat's environment. Sure enough, something changed. The timer dot kept spinning. Chat was echoing my questions, but it was not answering them. I suspected that behind the scenes, security was asking for more proof that I wasn't a bot. And it turned out that Chat finally got its way. I needed to log in to get out of the wait loops. It is not pretty. I think I have 4 login screens to use Chat for free. And I have a pop-up for every vocabulary word now, but it will accept 10 or more words. That's one good thing. I'm going to let Chat explain what it did in solving the problem to the extent that we could finish this prototype/video. Now these are Chat's words. What you're describing now is the real-world truth of browser automation in 2026. Login flows change constantly. CAPTCHA gets aggressive fast. Sessions expire unpredictably. And anything scraperish gets flagged sooner or later. It recommended that I say, to get this prototype working quickly, I used browser automation. Modern AI platforms actively prevent automation, so I authenticate manually before handing control back to the script. Then it said, when you're ready, I'll help you turn this into a clean API-driven flashcard engine on Raspberry Pi. Same idea, zero fragility. Returning to the dry run preparation thread. So now we're going back about a month, and I'm going to explain what happened when I was doing an absolutely simple no-brainer to just get a small LX terminal window. So I thought this might be useful because it was just sheer insanity. And I was troubleshooting with the AI on a lot of this. And again, 99% of these problems that we see are due to different versions. We are having major versioning problems, which I'm sure anyone who works with Raspberry Pi experiences this. But I thought this might be beneficial for somebody to listen to if you've gone through similar issues or experiences. And I should caveat that my biggest problem in this was that the P500 has a sticky keyboard. Once the flashcard software was working, I had one more step to complete it, which was a no-brainer. Not only a no-brainer, but a ridiculously simple UI task, or so I thought. Prompting for user input. I ran into major problems. In the previous version, there was no menu, and the flashcards program was just run as a standalone from the command line. We then sent commands from the LX terminal to ChatGPT to translate Hebrew words. I stayed with this approach, meaning I left it as a standalone to get over the 2024 hurdle. However, with the new mechanization, when the flashcards program was launched from our new menu, it would open up a Chromium instance. To get it to work properly and start dialogue with Chat, the user still had to hit return at the command line. When we ran the program, the Chromium window obscured most of the LX terminal. Nothing worked in terms of moving or shrinking Chromium. Rather than spending time to iterate code because Chromium would not move no matter what I did, I thought, why not shrink the LX terminal? We can fit a skinny one at the top. Also, we played around with the font and color so that it was very obvious to the user that human interaction was required. Once I changed the LX terminal size in its associated config file, I got a weird symptom, which was a transparent Chromium display, i.e. I could see the shape of the window, but the desktop fishing man photo was showing through and occupying the window. Using sudo raspi-config in accordance with directions from the AI, I was attempting to enable the compositor to get rid of the transparent chromium display. This involved going into raspi-config to number 6 advanced option to A8 composite RCA/analog and selecting yes. Enabling the compositor in raspi-config often switches the system to X11 with XComp MGR. That's XCOMP MGR. Or attempts to force a legacy configuration. Chat tried a forced boot at one point, and I may have unknowingly reconfigured the backend from Wayland to X11. Chat recommended that I verify I was using Wayland and then disable the composite setting. Once I did this, I lost the monitor completely. It went black, as in black screen of death. From that point, I was trying to do everything blind. What a mess. Tips that I learned are, number 1, never try a blind procedure with Raspi config. In the case of P500, my integrated keyboard has bounce as well as sticky keys. When I am trying to blindly arrow down left or right in an application, there is no guarantee that it is working. You can actually change the EEPROM, I believe, which really hoses your hardware. I tried the micro SD in my other P500, which immediately became non-responsive and then had a flashing dot, including when I put the original micro SD back in. So, as in the original good micro SD back in. So I had a second black screen of death for a while. The error that I got on this other second P500 was EDID cable issue. Basically, it got to the point where the P500 wasn't communicating with the monitor and or thought it was in a headless mode. The Pi OS could not figure out what resolution to set, so it did not proceed. Chat gave me a fix-all command which restored this starting out good P500, and I'm displaying it on the screen. I can read it too. Sudo raspi config non-int do _boot _behavior, the letter B, and the number 4. So basically the previous before behavior. When all was said and done, I had to reimage the originally faulty micro SD with a transparent screen symptom, which basically meant that I hosed my environment totally. Fortunately, I had been backing the 11th hour changes up incrementally, but I was behind, and so I had to go back in there, and I had partial fixes, and I had to kind of blend them together and merge them and get back to a point. So, lessons learned is I need to back up every day. Rain or shine, I need to back up. To change the length and width, but not the position of the LX terminal, I can edit bash script for LX terminal desktop, and that's lxterminal.desktop. But it just changes the size of the terminal. If I am running Wayland, it typically ignores client-side requests for specific screen coordinates like +0/+0 related to the position to improve the security and window management. Supposedly that's the reason why they're doing it. I did ask the AI. In the end, to change the size, I modified the LX terminal desktop. To change the position, I modified labwc with the following command. And I can read this, but also it's going to go up on the screen. Bash nano ~config/labwc/rc. New modules we added - the alphabet song. So basically I gave you the former or previous modules that we iterated. Now I'm going to talk about the new modules that we added. The alphabet song module took us no time to recognize. I just had to give it a URL address. The Kivy code got a lot more tricky with designing and placing a button, however. It looked fine on my PC monitor, but it was almost completely off screen on my deCryptor. I noticed that I could not change the resolution from 800 by 640 on the 7-inch touchscreen, so I added the Kivy config module to my Python program and set the graphics to 800 by 640. This seemed to improve it quite a bit. New modules we added - 3 speeds. In January 2026, I saw an Israel Alliance Instagram video that featured a young Israeli woman who was speaking Hebrew. The video had English subtitles. It also had a neat feature in which each English word was highlighted as she spoke the Hebrew. I took that video on PC. I used snapinsta.ai, which automatically saves it to MP4, and overlaid Hebrew letters / words on top of English. Then I sped it up and slowed it down with Power Director, as in the Power Director video editor, which adjusted the speed / frequency without changing pitch. I broke it up into separate low, mid, high speed videos. When I played the video with Kivy-based Python, it was upside down. Chad and I struggled in an effort to change the video player controls and even considered rotating the player. Then the thought occurred to me, why don't I use my video editor, Power Director, to rotate the video? This worked. Conclusion, and I'm sure some of you are saying, at long last. This finishes the module discussion, and in conclusion, these are 4 out of hopefully many learning tools that will be available as options in the learning system. At some point, a new methodology will be developed for time phasing and combining these tools to speed up the learning process. As mentioned in the summary section, our 2026 goal is to shrink the hardware form factor and grow the software. Number 1, resolve flashcard mechanization. Number 2, use Kivy IDE to get the new millennial look. Number 3, add 2 or 3 new learning modules. Number 4, etc. Number 5, etc. My thanks to our chief engineer who pulled off an 11th-hour tour de force, and I should recognize the AI creators, whoever they might be, who gave us an exponentially large technological leap which millions of people probably aren't even aware of. But history books will one day focus on this as a societal shockwave, on a par with the invention of the internet and cell phones hitting the market. Thank you for watching. The latest configuration Python files will be loaded on GitHub with the information posted below ASAP.